learners, welcome to this course NGPE 006 Gandhi's Economic Thought. Today we will see the unit 13 that is titled as Decentralization. Welcome to this course. I am Dr. G. Uma, working as an assistant professor in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. I am coordinating this course MGPE 006 Gandhi's Economic Thought. Like before we get into the aims and objectives of the unit, I would like to introduce this unit. As we all understand, the structure of an economy is shaped by the organization of production and distribution. The organization of production may be centralized in few large scale industries catering to the domestic as well as industrial markets in the form of big corporations or multinational companies. That is the one way of organizing production and distribution. Other way of organizing production and distribution is also possible, that is to organize the production and distribution in a small scale manner, that is in a very decentralized manner. This is what Gandhi's economic thought tried to explain to us. According to Gandhi's economic thought, the organization of production and distribution structures have far-reaching influence on the distribution of income and economic power. So, it is also possible according to Gandhi to organize a production in a very decentralized structure in the form of small and scattered production unit owned by the masses. A society that intends to establish an egalitarian socio-economic setup has to establish a decentralized polity and economy prior to it. So, now we look into the aims and objectives of the unit. This unit we have written and we are explaining with the following aims and objectives. First one is to make the learners to understand Gandhi's concept of decentralization, its structure and functioning, and we must know the present status of decentralized planning in India, and we must also know the merits of decentralization process. These are the three very important aims and objective of this unit. Before we get into the Gandhi's thought about decentralization, first we need to understand the meaning of decentralization and dimension of decentralization. As we all we must understand that decentralization is a system. This decentralization involves the systematic distribution of powers and functions across different political and economic agents in the society, and it has decentralization has both political and economic dimensions. First we will see the political dimension of decentralization. The political dimension of decentralization involves different levels of government and distribution of powers and functions at various levels of government such as national, state and local levels. I can quote the examples from Indian example. Here the decentralization means in our constitutionally India has a decentralized political structure, that is the national level we have a central government, at the state level we have a state government, below state level we have a district level, that is the below district level also at village level we have a panchayat. In the district level the panchayat raj system was established in a three-tier manner at the district level, middle tier structure and at the village level. I will explain this political decentralization as far as India is concerned little later in this lecture. Next we have to see the economic decentralization. The economic decentralization is an economic system implies decentralization of various economic activities concerned with production, distribution and exchange. It implies organization of production in small production units of different sizes like a small, medium, large sizes owned by a large group of people and distribution of production through various channels. So, there is a political dimension of decentralization as well as there is an economic dimension of decentralization. Gandhi has explained both political as well as economic dimension of decentralization. I hope now you understood the two dimension of decentralization. Political decentralization, it talks about the establishing the decentralized units at the various level to manage the entire system of the country. Basically, economic decentralization, it talks about the production and distribution and exchange of commodities, goods through by establishing a small, medium size or large size small units largely owned by the group of people, and the distribution and production, it happens within a certain areas, like for example, both production and distribution may be confined within a one village or within the block level. So, it is like mostly Gandhi thought about the small scale production, and these production mostly owned and managed by the people itself. So, these are the two dimensions of decentralization as far as Gandhi's thought is concerned. Now, let us see the structure of the decentralization. According to Gandhi, we need to empower the village panchayat, that is the village level local self government, that is a very essential requirement for building up an effective decentralized politico-economic structure, that is very important. Now, let us see the concept of Gandhian concept of decentralization. According to Gandhi, first one is the decentralization in decision making. Gandhi's system is based on village republic or village panchayat. Here the people of the village participate in decision making process. Here I would like to cite one example about the Gram Sabha. As we all know, according to constitution, lowest structure in our country is the Gram Sabha. Here all the adult who have completed 18 years of age and they are the members of the Gram Sabha, they come together and they take part in their own affairs. So, here the people of the village participate in the decision making. All socio-economic political decisions related to their life and the life of their village will be taken by the people in the particular village. So, decentralization thus implies that giving power to the people to take decisions for their own life. Second one is the decentralization of ownership of means of production. Here it implies that economic decentralization. So, this is Gandhi's model of rural industrialization based on he promoted the khadi and village industries, and the decentralization of ownership means like the production itself decentralized and the people they themselves they own, they produce and they distribute the goods, and each village they have their own production units, they produce the goods and services whatever using the locally available material. That is the important thing about the Gandhi. He himself quoted in Harijan, like in 1934, quote, "I hate privilege and monopoly, whatever cannot be shared with the masses is taboo to me," unquote. The third one is the decentralization of structure of the production. That decentralization of production structure implies the production in a large number of small and cottage industries. And Gandhi wanted to establish the production unit in each and every villages in the village. For example, around 7 lakh villages are in India. He would like to establish the production unit in each and every villages. Actually, if you look at it, when we talk about Gandhi, we all showed the spinning wheel as to represent the Gandhi. According to him, spinning wheel is a symbol of village and small industries and the emancipation of rural masses. Like for example, he encourages and sustains many other village industries. And one of the very important concept and he promoted is the khadi. According to him, khadi is the son of the village system. When the demand for khadi increases, the demand for spinning wheel also increases, leading to more businesses for the carpenters and blacksmiths. This will followed by the demand for dyeing and printing businesses in other village industries. Like that, he would like to establish the production units, whatever the material available in the particular village. Based on that material, they establish the production unit, they produce and distribute among themselves. Last one is the decentralization of location of production. Here the centralized production structure according to Gandhi leads to localization of industries for few places, like giving rise to big metropolitan cities like Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai. This also creates difficulties in distributions. Therefore, Gandhi wants to establish the decentralization production units in each and every villages, basically in a rural places, every rural places, and these production of rural industries, it will spin over the entire country, nook and corner of the entire country. This is the basic Gandhian concept of decentralization. Next we will see the objectives of the decentralization. Decentralization of production has a following objectives. First is that generation of full employment and sustainable livelihood for the rural masses and promotion of full utilization of local resources. That is the first objectives, that again and again I am stressing in this lecture, that he wants to establish the production unit based on the locally available material. The next one is the production of goods to meet the basic needs of the people and their equitable distribution. The next objective with regard to the decentralization is that to promote mass ownership of means of production and attain equitable distribution of income. The next one is to control the exploitation of villages by cities and towns, and to promote ideals of bread labor, simple living and self-sufficiency villages. Other objectives are to promote balanced regional development and balance between production and consumption, to strengthen democracy through decentralization of political and economic powers and empowerment of village panchayat, and to promote skill development and capacity building among poor. These are the main objectives of the decentralization. Now we are talking about the decentralization and decentralization. Then you must be thinking that why can't centralization? What is the problem with this centralization? According to Gandhi, centralization of production is characterized by mass production in large factories located in few urban places in the economy, as we all know. And in the current situation also, if you look at the production units in India, like some of the production hubs are there in India, like few places in north like Gurgaon, Pune, Chennai and Mumbai, Bangalore, only few metropolitan cities, all the production units are located. So, according to Gandhi, the production is carried out with the help of machines. All this centralized production, you all aware that the centralized production is characterized by mass production in large factories, that we all aware. Now we are witnessing also, located in few urban places in the economy. This production is carried out with the help of machines. The investment requires large amount of capital to start such industries. Inequality and exploitation are inherent in the centralized production structure that characterize the capitalist economy. So, he is totally against the centralization of production. According to Gandhi, centralized production is very highly capital intensive, and centralized production gives rise to the phenomena of colonialism through exploitation of villages by cities. That I can explain. According to Gandhi, he writes, the poor villages are exploited by the foreign government and also by their own countrymen, that is the city dwellers. They produce the food and go hungry. They produce milk and their children have to go without it. It is disgraceful. Further, they also face competition for their industries for urban sector. In a long run, village will dwindle and disappear gradually, unquote. According to him, centralized industry promotes violence, large scale production offends against nature also. Now all of us are in the 21st century talking about the sustainable development. Gandhi's concept more or less address the issues of sustainable development. According to him, mass production requires much larger capital. Centralization is hostile to the existence of non-violent social order, and the factory workers are deprived of the purity and naturalness of domestic atmosphere in rural areas. These are the some of the evils of decentralization according to Gandhian thought. And after talking about the evils of centralization, Gandhi talked about the advantages of decentralization. According to him, when we make the production unit more decentralized, it promotes the development of small industries using local raw materials and utilize simple tools and implements. Sustainable employment opportunities by the cottage industries and the decentralized small and cottage industries use labor intensive technologies that creates demand for local labor. And the decentralized production will provide the equitable distribution of wealth, and democracy and decentralization of political power is meaningless without the decentralization of economic power. He talked about it, both political decentralization and economic decentralization, it has to go hand in hand together, then only we can achieve the political decentralization as well as the economic decentralization. Production in decentralized setup reduces the cost through reduction and elimination of cost, and last he also talked about there is a less threat from strikes and lockdowns if there is a decentralized production. He also talked about the balanced production and consumption, and for example in the centralized production, the economists they talked about the trickle down process. That means if you produce something in a centralized manner over a period of time, in the initial stage the entire resources, productions and consumption, it may located in the urban areas and few places. Over a period of time through the trickle down process, it will spread through entire areas, like it will everybody will benefit ultimately through the centralized production. But many economists they critique the concept of they critique the centralized production process, and they have cited the example that this trickle down process has not happened due to the centralized productions. So, Gandhi was in turn talking about the trickle down process. According to him, if you decentralize the productions, it will certainly the trickle down process will happen, that will impact on poverty reductions. That is the important thing. According to him, small industries, more employment, more wages, more demand and more production. This is what Gandhi talking about. There is a little room for increasing surplus beyond basic necessities of life. When there is a production in decentralized manner, and whatever they produce based on the locally available material, and they produce in a very limited quantities. Those limited quantities also consumed by the advantages of decentralization, local people itself. So, there is no room for increasing the surplus beyond the basic necessities of life. Decentralization of production would lead to decentralization of economic as well as political power. It is one of the means to create classless, unexploited, egalitarian society. That is what Gandhi talked about. G.D.H. Cole observes that Gandhi's campaign for the development of homemade cloth industry is no mere fad of the romantic eager to revive the past, but a practical attempt to relieve the poverty and uplift the standard of village, unquote. This is what he is talking about, the Gandhian approach to the economy. And now we need to look at the structure of decentralization in Gandhian approach. Gandhian approach to economic decentralization was to revival of the village economy into republic, complete in itself. Actually, Gandhi talked about the village itself should act like a republic, and each village should be self-supporting by themselves. It should be self-sufficient with a due equilibrium between agriculture and cottage industries. And also decentralized economic system, there are two major sectors in the decentralized. One is the public sector and another one is the private cum cooperative sector. The decentralized private cum cooperative economy is shaped in Gandhi's 18-point constructive program. The issue of coordination between the nationalized and non-nationalized sectors is made clear by Sriman Narayan Agarwal in his book Gandhian Plan of Economic Development for India in the year 1944. So, then let us now we discussed about the centralization, decentralization, advantages of decentralization and disadvantages of centralization. One more important issues here we need to understand and we need to talk about is the planned economy. First, we need to understand the salient features of planned economy. In this planned economy, the basic and key industries shall be owned and managed by the state in the interest of the nation as a whole. India got an independence in 1947. We adopted the planned economy till 12th 5-year plan. We followed the 5-year plan, and we every 5 year based on the existing development we have planned for the 5 year. The same was implemented by the government, by various structures of the government, central government, state government, and lately the Panchayat Raj institutions also involved in implementing the various policies and programs. In the planned economy, there will not be much scope for capitalist investment and enterprise under the plan. In the execution of this plan of economic development, although there will be Central National Planning Committee, earlier we were having the Planning Commission, now we call it as Nidhi Ayog with its provincial branches, that they have a branches at the state level. Even now we are having, based according to the constitution in the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, there is a district level planning committee has to be established and it should be operationalized. So, in the execution of this planned economy, there is a Central National Planning Committee with its provincial branches. Greatest emphasis will be laid on the resuscitation of village communities with the largest possible autonomy. The Gram Panchayat play a very important role in this planned economy. Then simple living and high thinking is the very important with regard to planned economy and Gandhian model of economy. So, now we talked about the centralization and decentralization. So, if we want to implement the decentralized planning and policies, and if you want to follow the decentralized model of economic development and political development, what are the requirements for the success of decentralization? First requirements is that we should plan from the below, and we need to establish the local self-governments, that is now we call it already we have established based on the 74th and 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. So, establishment of local self-government at district, block and village panchayat level, and the proper distribution of administrative powers at various levels with proper coordination and centralized direction. The members at various levels should have adequate knowledge and information about development programs and policies. Public participation in planning process is very important. Even at the village level, people should, large numbers, they should participate in the panchayat activities, and regularly they participate in the Gram Sabha meetings to actively decide their own future as well as the future of their panchayats. Integration and implementation of the plans, and we need to consider village as the unit of production. In this entire process, according to Gandhi, the spinning wheel symbolizes the decentralization of production with its forward and backward linkages. So, we talked about the centralization, centralized production and decentralized production, advantages of decentralized production of economic activities. Now, let us see the decentralization in India present status. Currently, whatever we are seeing, the present status of Panchayat Raj institutions evolved over a period of time. The Panchayat Raj, in the establishment of Panchayat Raj institutions, kept in the directive principles of state policy. After we got an independence, the government of India formed various committees to revive the Panchayat Raj institutions. The first one is the committee headed by the Balwant Rai Mehta. They have studied the Panchayat Raj institutions and they have given the certain recommendations in the year 1957. After Balwant Rai Mehta committee, there was an Ashok Mehta committee. They too gave the recommendations to the government for the establishment of Panchayat Raj institutions at the various level, but constitutionally the government did not establish, and it did not give the constitutional status to the Panchayat Raj institutions till the year 1993. Before that, some states like West Bengal, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, they have tried their own models of Panchayat Raj institutions and they have implemented. By looking at the success of these experiments, especially the success of the Karnataka model enunciated by Ramakrishna Hegde, regenerated the countrywide interest in Panchayat Raj and political decentralization during 1990s. Before we give the reservation to the women and marginalized sections of the population in the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, the Karnataka experiment, they provided the reservations to the women. Based on the Karnataka model, in 1993, three-tier structure was established, that is the at district level, district panchayat and middle level panchayat and the gram panchayat at the village level. Apart from these three structures, they have established the Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha is that all the adult voters, they are part of the Gram Sabha, and in some states yearly they have to conduct 3 times in a Gram Sabha. Some states like in Tamil Nadu, every year 4 times they need to conduct the Gram Sabha meeting. The entire village and entire members like in each Gram Panchayat, all the adults who have attained 18 years of age, they are the members of the Gram Sabha. They actively participate in the Gram Sabha meetings and they discuss about the development issues faced by the Gram Panchayat, as well as they discussed about the policies, government policies and programs, how to implement those policies and programs at the village level. I have explained about the existing the structure of the Panchayat Raj institutions at present in India. Like in the decentralized planning process, the initial stage, like immediately after we got an independence, the entire focus was rapid industrialization through the development of large scale industries, which required a centralized planning. Planning at the village level for major economic activities with a long run vision was not considered viable during that period. Though high levels of illiteracy, lack of expertise and planning machinery were other obstacles to start the process at the grassroots level. But over a period of time, everybody has realized the importance of decentralized planning, because at the village level it is impossible to implement the plan, whatever they plan decide at the national level, sometimes it does not suit for the entire country. So, they have realized the importance of decentralized planning, and also there is so many failures in the centralized planning. By looking at the existing failure of the centralized planning and to address the various issues at the various states, and also the development of states, each states differ in the country, like you cannot compare the one state with other states. So, economically, socially, politically, the every aspects of development it differs region to region, it differs state to state, it differs. So, they have realized the importance of decentralized planning. According to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam in his Vision 2020, he advocated the very important issue, that is the decentralized planning, and he gave the one model that is called the PURA, Provision of Urban Amenities in Rural Areas model for rural development. This PURA model involves 4 basic connectivities to the rural areas, that is the physical connectivity, electronic connectivity, knowledge and economic, to promote the sustainable development in rural India. It attempts to check the rural urban migration process in the country. So, by looking at these advantages of decentralization, now the government is encouraging the panchayats to plan for their own activities. So, decentralization of economic activities and the organization of production in small unit is viable by looking at the various experiments based on the Gandhian model of economic development. That is the first thing, they realize the importance of decentralized planning. Second one is that it can be eradicated, we can eradicate the poverty and unemployment by doing the decentralization of economic activities. Through the decentralization of economic activities, there is a chances for attainment of economic utility. In spite of this progress, we have progressed so much in every aspect, whether it is a literacy or access to health or access to educational activities, So, economic development, every aspects India has developed and reached so much, but it has still the country has to develop much more in every aspects. So, it is very important to realize the significance of decentralized economic realize the significance of decentralization of economic activities, and it is important to give the importance to the rural industries through the establishment of small and cottage industries like an agro processing unit. Like that, so many units we can certainly establish at the village level, in a various level, to decentralize the production to address the various issues. Hope our learners you could able to understand the advantages and disadvantages of the decentralization and centralization of production and distribution of and establishment of economic activities at the various level. At the end of this course, we will give you the elaborate references that will certainly elaborate references and suggested readings that will certainly help you to explore these topics further. Thank you.